você me avisa quando a gente está...
Ok, em um minutinho já estamos online.
Ok, tá bom. Você não queria esperar até a gente receber mais gente na sala, não? Dos alunos? Ou...
Bom, acho que para o lançamento podemos lançar agora e para o início da Masterclass, aí fica a seu critério, podemos aguardar um pouquinho.
Ok, estamos com apenas 7 pessoas até agora, não tá? Hey, Joe.
9 pessoas já.
Hi, Joe.
Hey.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody.
Glad that you receive it.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you. Hello, Darren.
Hey, how you doing? So, Joe, we're just waiting. This is an actual festival, so we're waiting for the for the students to check in.
Okay.
Usually
There's Wagner too.
Yeah.
Wagner.
Yes. Wagner's there.
Everybody's here. All my friends are here. Great.
So.
And the baby's here.
Yes.
Yes, my daughter is becoming a little crazy right now.
Well, thank you for having me, Darren.
No, are you kidding? Yeah. So I'm gonna open up the as soon as the coordinator gives me the okay.
Okay, really quick. I got a quick question.
Sure.
When at the moment, if somebody comes from America to Brazil, do they have to quarantine?
As far as I know, yes. This is what Terry Fisher told us. The conductor, he had to quarantine.
Yeah, because that's going to change my
agenda.
Well, it could. Yeah. So
okay.
You were with Julia. You were
Julia.
Julia. Yeah. If you happen to see her, you might want to ask her because
I will get a clarification on that, and I'm gonna get back to you for sure.
Yeah. Ok.
Professor, se me permite, eu ouvi a pergunta dele. Enquanto fazemos aí, né, o Masterclass, eu vou checar essa informação para ele.
Okay. So the coordinator is going to actually check on that information about entering, because it's changing every day. Joe, we just went back into the red zone here in Brazil. So this is going to happen on Saturday. We're right now in orange, and now we will go to red as of Saturday. And this was actually a surprise because the last time you and I spoke, I was thinking that we were, going to have easy sailing, from here on out. But things have taken a turn for the worse. So
well, we have till August. So
no. By the time you come, I think we're going to be in much better shape, and maybe we won't even have a necessary quarantine, regardless of what the regulations are now. Vinícius, eu estou esperando você me dar um sinal sobre o YouTube. Quando a gente vai...
Já estamos online, professor.
Ok, tá.
Uma última pergunta. Eu te indago se você quer que eu faça a tradução aqui no chat.
Ajudaria um pouco. Eu vou acompanhar, sabe? Aí o José, como você está aqui, aí qualquer coisa, sabe? Você me sinalizar, você entende? A gente precisa dar uma parada, você entende? Para eu traduzir. So, okay. Vamos lá, gente. So, Joe, I'm going to make an opening here, and then I will speak to you normally in English, and then as I see how the translations are going, Jose is also going to help me. He's one of the 2 other trombone instructors for this festival. So we'll be coordinating just to make sure that the students are basically getting what we're saying. And if I have to stop to translate something, I'll just break it up like you usually would. So, sure. Okay. So here we go. Boa tarde, gente. Sou Darren Coleman Milling, trombonista baixo, solista da Orquestra Sinfônica do Estado de São Paulo. Estamos aqui, CIVEBRA 2021, e hoje, dia 8, de aulas nesse festival maravilhoso. Nós temos grande, estimado convidado, o Joe Alessi. Ele é o primeiro trombone solo da Filarmônica de Nova York. Antigamente, ele era colega também dentro da Orquestra da Filadélfia, com o nosso professor, o Glenn Dotson. Bom, a maioria de vocês que acompanham, a trajetória, tanto as atividades dele na internet, já sabem que ele é um monstro, que redefiniu as expectativas sabe, de trombone nessas últimas décadas. Eu tenho o maior prazer de, sabe, de ter ele aqui em nossa sala virtual de trombones. Bom, se vocês me permitem, eu peço que todo mundo abra as suas câmeras, sabe, por questão de, sabe, ética, e vamos dar um aplauso para dar bem-vindos para nosso convidado de hoje, por favor.
Thank you. Obrigado.
So, Joe, welcome. So this is really a wonderful pleasure and a wonderful opportunity for us to have a access to you prior to your visit that's going to take place later this year. We've been really looking forward to having you come back for a long time. And so here in this classroom, you have students of the international summer course of the School of Music of Brasilia. So this is actually happening. The base of this is happening not in São Paulo, but way up there in Brasilia, the federal district. So we have a wonderful, also presence of professionals and representatives from the trombone community in Brazil. And I'm happy to tell you publicly that, since you and I have been talking, something new has happened in the trombone community here in Brazil. There is now what I believe, I would say probably the most inclusive trombone representative association, so to speak, or collective that is run by a former student of mine, and also has the collaboration of Wagner, who's here with us. So I'm hoping to get a chance to introduce them, here to you. But so first, you already know Jose, who is here with us at the festival. Also online is Paulo Roberto, who is a very senior and retired teacher who used to teach at this school where the festival is being directed from. He's been with us at every session, and we call him Paulinho. We have obviously Wagner Politruk, as you can see, and the one person on the screen, I don't know if you know him, his name is Eduardo Machado, and he is a wonderful young professional. We call him Boa, and he is basically the one who sort of brought this idea and this new. I would say it's the Brazilian Trombone Collective. It's not necessarily a group, a fixed group. It is literally the new sort of association that has really embraced everyone who is here, working and playing trombone in the country of Brazil. And I'm very happy to have been included. Did I lose Joe? Oh no, he's there. So I'm very happy to to report to you that this exists, and I'm sure that at some point they want to have questions for you. Before we get started, Joe, I wanted to just let you know that I've had several guests coming, some of your colleagues from different places, but one particular interview event took place like about a week ago, and this is whereby Mr. Jay Friedman from Chicago Symphony was on a one-on-one with this new Brazilian trombone collective, and he gave, I think it was about almost a 3-hour interaction with the class. So I know probably you don't have 3 hours, but I wanted to let you know that you are the only guest today, and there's really no limit. And we're all so incredibly happy. There's so much to share. We have a lot of students here who are between the ages of 15 to 65. So you can basically just consider that all of us are here to learn and to, and we have, of course, I'm sure there are going to be questions. So first, welcome again, and please just know that the floor is yours. So whatever direction you would like to go, and if we can ask questions, but if you have something to present or sequence, we're open. Okay. So
Okay.
Nice to have you, brother.
Thank you. Thanks. I don't know if I'll do 3 hours, but I don't know if I can do that right now. But you know, let's see how we are in about an hour, and then we'll go from there. So
Okay.
yeah, it's great to see everybody. I'm really, yeah, that's very excellent news about bringing everybody together in Brazil, trombone players, regardless of what teacher they studied with or all that stuff, you know. In China, it's very sad because they over there they have, you know, if you study with the teacher there, you're not allowed to even go to any other teacher's master classes. If I do a master class for one teacher, none of those students are allowed to come and see my class.
Wow.
It's forbidden. Yeah. So there they got it really bad. But
Yeah.
so yeah, so you know, we're better sticking together, I think. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll go through what I consider important in music, and also I just and also trombone playing. Um, I just gave a lesson to one of the bass trombone players at the school just about an hour ago. It was the first time he studied with me. And what do we work on? What I work on with everybody else is, you know, first of all, this bass trombone player has a wonderful sound, gorgeous sound, but his legato doesn't match, the quality of his legato doesn't match his sound. And that's what I find a lot. Uh, there are many students where the sound and the legato are need to be improved. And you know, I'll start with sound first, and see, you know, there are ways to improve sound. We can talk about that. But you know, in the case of this gentleman, his legato just wasn't coming up to the quality of his sound. So anyway, we worked a lot on that. And how do we do that? Well, I always start by telling people to listen, not on the notes themselves, but as you travel from one note to the next, or certainly just between the notes. And when you look at sheet music, look at between the notes. Okay, so obviously, if you looked at between the notes, I could tell you, you know, that the note on the left side is an F, and the note on you can see both notes at the same time. But if you concentrate on that little space between the notes, that is um, a good way to start with better legato. The second thing with legato is the vowel. So when we sing to our students, you know, we're singing a Bordogni. We don't sing words, or we don't sing ta 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 ta. We don't do that. We just sing like this, or maybe a little bit of legato here in the tongue. But you know, so one of the things that, of course, I like to teach everybody the natural slurs first. Okay, so I'm a big. I believe that's the way you should learn your legato, and there's other ways of teaching this, but if you can come up with a great natural slur, just even a lip slur that's smooth, okay, then you need to match your legato tongue with that natural slur. That's the way my viewpoint is. Some people say, okay, let's do the legato tongue, make that really smooth, and match the natural slur with that. So what's great about the natural slur is the air is going to continue. I like the sound of the air continuing. Okay, and if you were to play, I mean, with rare exceptions, if you were to play everything with legato tongue, I would be able to pick up on that and say, "Well, you're using tongue here, using." It's very rare that I can't detect that. So, anyway, that's you know. So, in the category of legato playing, you know, we got the natural slurs. When you do the natural slurs, this gentleman I just taught had never, um, well, wait a sec. He had studied with somebody in the Midwest, and then he came to Juilliard. So he said, "Oh yes, you're singing you're singing vowels. So when I sing da dee da da dee da dee da da or da ee or whatever, and the lower is da 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 dee da da, like that, do or do e da e, you know, any of these things are kind of the way that I think about connecting notes. So, and when you do that, so I demonstrated to him, and he said, how do you play an octave slur without getting one note in between? Right, right. You know, when you do the slur and then you hear ba like that.
Yeah,
So he asked me about that specifically, and I said, well, let me demonstrate, and so I did it and said the thing that you do is you're changing your mouth cavity, okay, at a specific time. Okay, and so if you encourage the syllables that go along with that, that cements that into place. And so he tried that, and it worked perfectly for him. So, and he said, oh yeah, there was a teacher that that talked about that. His current teacher doesn't talk about that. Of course, I'm not going to name any names, but so it's really this is the way that I was taught, with syllables, vowels, and changing registers or going the opposite direction, t or ta, something like that. But there is definitely this, you can feel it in your mouth when you make these changes, that hey, you got to go from this setting to this setting, or this setting to that setting, and that's the way it feels. So anyway, in the case of the natural slur, that is an element that everybody has to be aware of. You have to be aware of against the grain slurs. This is a hard thing to teach. So now, should I be quiet and let you translate, or should I just keep talking?
I'm
because
looking
that's quite a list of things I already said.
Yeah, actually, in truth, congratulations to Vinicius. He seems to be translating quite a bit here in the chat, and I'm following that. So, and
that would be great.
Yeah, and I had asked Jose to sort of keep an eye out to let me know if we were missing anything. So,
well, yeah, because if I can just keep talking, that would be better.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I'm not going to interrupt unless I see there's a pertinent question, or if I see that something's not really being translated. Okay.
I'm sorry. I think we can go ahead. It's really good here.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so anyway, the against
okay
yeah, the against the grain slur, of course, that's what we call it here in English. But what that is if the sun is up here and the grass is here, okay, the grass is going to grow towards the sun, okay, and then now you're on a lawn, or you're on a putting green on a golf course, and now you have to putt the ball this way towards the hole, and the grass is growing this way. That's called against the grain of the grass. Okay, that's what that means. So, but these types of slurs, F to G, E flat to G, E flat to F sharp. Whenever the pitch goes up, okay, and we're moving the slide out, this is the main type of slur I'm talking about with this problem. You have to really study this. I like to use the middle section of the somewhere over the rainbow. So, C natural.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and that's a great little study, how to make that nice. Anyway, to study that in different keys. Part of the somewhere over the rainbow, and that's tough. You have to really, when you go down from C to A, it's not such a big deal, But when you go up from A to C, that's a problem. So people have to, how do you work on that? It's corners for sure, using your corners, and also saying ha a little bit. Ta ha. So ta ha ha. Ta ha ta ha. They going up. Ta ha ta ha, and staying open also. So speaking of, now I'm just talking about different things. But anyway, the last thing I'll talk about is in regards to legato is just, the legato tongue and moving the slide as late as possible. Okay. So, legato tongue, what is the syllable that we actually do when we use the legato tongue? Some people say da, but if you say da, 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 that doesn't translate. So it's something else. It's something smoother than that. Okay. So I think it's between a D and an N. So if you go dun and then N after that, dun, it's somewhere in there. So da 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 da, like that. And so we're not striking the roof of the mouth, but we brush the roof of the mouth very gently. And the other thing is I tell my students, stay very close to the vowel when you do the legato tongue. So if you start to focus on the consonant too much, then your legato gets too accented and too angular. So it's very important to just like the singer, the brochu is called, Bordogni is called vocalize, vocal. And I'm sure I think in Portuguese, vocal means vowel, right? Am I right about that? Or no? Hello?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, in French, vocal means vowel. Okay. Yeah. So and so when we play these, you should sing these things first. The singers don't use any tongue at all when they sing. Okay, it's just like that. So if you can do that and sing that way, and then play it that way, then you have a really good shot at keeping it smooth. All right, so I've talked about legato. Is there any questions about that?
Ok, oi gente. Então, aqui mais uma vez, nós estamos aqui no Sala Virtual de CIVEBRA 2021. Estamos aqui com Joe Alessi, primeiro trombone da Filarmônica de Nova York. Para nossos alunos que estão aqui dentro da sala virtual, para quem que estava chegando um pouquinho atrasado, está sendo traduzido a fala, então não estou interruptando, sabe, para traduzir tudo. So, ele acabou de dar um discurso sobre a questão de legato, desde, assim, apoio, sabe, o conceito de apoio do ar, sabe, como se ligar, assim, até esse, o vogal, sabe, que ele pensa, e também ele explicou como realmente ele pensa numa língua que não seja nem dá e nem não, mas algo assim que fica no meio. Foi isso que ele estava demonstrando no final. Hey, Joe, I want to just compliment my explanation to them, and also just to make sure that I'm on the right page with you here. So, I mean, when you're explaining that it's somewhere between the da and the no, but in the end, we're talking about the release of the tongue itself. In other words, how the tongue is being released, how the tongue is releasing the air. Not necessarily something that they should be enunciating as they play. It's just more of like a positioning of the tongue. Is that right?
Yeah, the position of the tongue. That's all.
Position of the tongue.
And it's not. Yeah, I don't want to say da and no. I would say da and na. So always stay. I like ah as a general vowel to use, but It's when you sing it. So if I'm going to sing legato, da 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 da. Now if I say da, that's not going to come out right. Da da da. Okay, and if I say na na na, that's not going to come out right. So da da da. It's in between.
Yeah, it's in between.
It's in between, I think.
I guess, yeah. Because I was asking only because there's been a lot of talk recently in the trombone community here in Brazil about that, and it seems that, you know, in terms of translation and comprehension, you know, it's sometimes a doubt in people's minds because they focus on, you know, the word instead of actually the movement of the tongue itself.
Right. It's right. Yeah. So that's my point. That's my point by saying that if it's not as simple as just saying da or na. It's this passing. The tongue again doesn't strike. It's not striking. It's just passing through like this. So when it passes through, it's some other. You know, you can't really write it down. Even you know, it's hard to write down what it actually is.
Right.
So
but I would be safe in translating and saying that that, you know, we're talking about, you know, a passing tongue that really, you know, the focus should be on how it is retracted, and you know, instead of necessarily about how it's hitting.
Well,
you know,
yeah, I don't want to get too complicated when I say things, but I want to keep it just simple. So yeah, and you know, the best legato is going to be like a singer. So again, when you do the vocalese, oh, like that, that's going to be the best. We're not using any consonants at all.
Right.
Nothing.
Right.
And this is why I like the natural slur, because there is no consonant involved, and then we just have to make our legato tongue sound like a vowel, you know, in a way. It's you. So when you do the legato tongue, I think we're thinking way too much consonant here. We got to stay as close to the vowel as possible.
Okay.
And I like to. What's that?
And this is in the context only of legato, obviously.
Style. Yes.
Talking about, yes. Okay.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about breathing. Okay. So every once in a while, I'll update myself and my teaching a little bit. You know, and you come up with something that makes sense. It makes sense to me, and I think it makes sense to the students. Okay. So, you know, we talk about breathing but just I like to put breathing in very simple terms. So this is my simple thought for breathing today. Okay. When we breathe in, we want to have an open feeling. Open feeling. So here we go. Okay. Just like that. Now, when we transition to exhaling, stay open. That's it. So I think this, you know, inhalation and exhalation should be like a mirror. They're mirror images of each other. So if we can have just this open feeling, we don't have to force open anything. We don't have to force our throat open. That's not necessary to do this. Okay. I know that kind of breathing. It's not the way I breathe. I know some teachers really get into this kind of breath. I'm not into that. I'm not into that. I just like to breathe naturally.
Yeah.
But a nice open feeling, open our lungs, open our airway, which we do naturally anyway. I'm not trying to open it. I'm just, you know, just like you're
part of the anatomy.
Well, just like simple things like relaxing yourself after a hard day. You know, God, you're so happy to get home. Like that. But so we open up. And then right here, stay open. Keep with that open feeling. Keep that open feeling. I think we tend to shut down when we play, and we've invested in the open, relaxed inhalation. Let's continue that open, relaxed feel when we blow. I think if you say that to somebody, when you think about it, and you try it on your instrument, you'll see what I'm talking about.
I think it's fantastic. I was sort of laughing because we had I actually created a page down here in Portuguese. Basically, it's called taking the BS out of teaching. And so my first invited guest was Wagner, and it was and I asked him to demonstrate how to breathe. And basically, he did exactly that what you just said. And that was it.
Well, yeah, I think, let's say when we look at a golf swing, okay, and I know maybe golf is not. I think you're more into football down there, but well, even maybe the football kick, we wind up. You watch a great soccer player get ready to hit the ball. He's running and he winds up to the ball, and then he has a wonderful motion, and it continues. The motion continues after he's hit the ball. So this happens in many sports, with golf especially. So you have a backswing, right? And it's a nice, fluid tempo. Everybody talks about tempo in sports. The tennis swing, tempo is important. So when you breathe in, you have this tempo, and then when you hit the ball or the beginning of the note, and then we follow through, right?
Exactly.
And so this type of mental images can be wonderful for playing.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to another subject. Well, I always, and I don't want to repeat myself, because I did a class for Jose not too long ago, and I just want to make sure I'm not repeating myself. So let me just throw this. Let me throw this on the screen here, and this is just a little clinic I do. Have you seen this before? Has anybody seen this before?
Okay.
I hope not. Anyway,
I hope not.
Otherwise, I'm repeating myself. Okay. So I always go to the first thing here. Oops, I just changed that. I don't know why. Now, yeah. So
Joe, are you able to augment your image there?
What do you mean?
Are you able to just make it a little bit larger?
Oh, okay. I mean, like that?
Just a little bit.
Like that?
Yeah. Well, actually, in truth, the page, like where the text is written, you augmented the image of everything, but the page is now even smaller.
Oh, I don't know if I know how to do that.
Okay, it's okay.
Okay,
it's probably a formatted document. That's why. Okay.
Yeah. So
yeah.
anyway,
hold on for 1 second.
Sure.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
So anyway, I started to look at the word musician. Okay, and it ends with CIAN. Okay, and then you look at other words in the English language that end with CIAN. Okay, we have pediatrician, we have technician, we have politician, and it goes on and on. There's other ones. Technician. Anybody else have one they can think of? Anyway, there's musician, technician,
politician.
Yeah, I said that, politician.
Okay, okay.
But anyway, there's others. But what it is if you look in the phone book for an electrician, okay, and it says certified electrician. So certified means they're great, and or certified technician. And in regards to an electrician, they have to know certain things. Okay, they have to know what positive and negative is. Okay, they must connect the red wire to the red wire and the green wire to the green wire. Okay, that's it. However, you hire an electrician for your house, and they come, and they don't know anything. They don't know. It's a fake electrician. Okay, and he comes and charges a lot of money. He has fake documents. He messes up your house, and he leaves, and he charges you a lot of money. Okay.
Sounds like you've had experience.
Yeah. Yeah. So now the musician, and if you put certified musician, okay, that musician has to know what, just like the electrician knows. What does that musician have to know? Okay. He or she has to know rhythm and pitch. Okay. This is something that, so, we study playing the trombone, we study our skills on the trombone, but we don't really improve our skills as musicians. Okay. And so in order to do that, so, and when I say we don't improve, because we hide behind our instruments. The instrument is just, just out here, and we use it, but the real instrument is here, of course. So we need to expose that. Teachers and students need to expose this real musician in each of us, and we have to do it without our trombone. So again, this is what I teach at the school, and I always test my students. Okay, please sing and conduct. Please sing and conduct. Okay, so 1, 2, 1, 2. Da-da-ga-dee, bum-ba-dum-bum, bum-ba-da-dum. Da-da-ga-dee, ba-ba-da-bum, ba-ba-da-dum. Da-da-ga-dee, ba-ba-ba-bee, ba-ba-ba-ba, da-ga-dum, bum-bee, ba-ba-dum-bee, ba-bum. Okay, so and so on. So you're doing it. When I do that, I'm not the greatest singer. I know that. Okay. And even though my mother was a great singer, but when I sing, I'm doing it with exuberance, with great rhythm. I'm doing it with pretty good pitch. Okay, I'm staying, and I'm breathing in the places that I breathe when I play. Okay, so this is what you want to accomplish in your practice sessions. You want to expose your musicianship, and you want to show that you can stay on pitch. Okay, so do you finish and end in the same pitch, same key? When you conduct, can you conduct and feel the beat? Okay, so feeling the beat and conducting involves the ictus. Okay, ictus, this little imaginary table here, boom, boom, like that. And so if students and teachers can do this, it's a little bit like, rubbing your head and patting your tummy at the same time. We're patting your head and rubbing your tummy at the same time. It's very interesting to do that. So anyway, I would and after you do that, you go back to your instrument and play. So this is 100 times out of 100 times, it always improves the student, and or when you play it yourself as a teacher, it's just amazing. So there's that thing I just wanted to say. Any questions about that?
So, gente, ele, sabe, gostaria de saber se tem algumas perguntas quanto essa, sabe, parte que ele está falando agora. Ok. O ministro está fazendo um ótimo trabalho aqui de tradução para quem que não está entendendo, sabe? Basta ler aqui dentro do chat. Tá muito bem. O José, sabe, me mandou um recado falando que tá tudo bem aqui.
Yeah, I'm gonna go through all these categories here.
Yeah, that's great. So ele vai realmente seguir o programa dele, sabe? As coisas que ele queria falar. Ele está tentando evitar de repetir as falas e os assuntos que ele tinha feito em outra entrevista com o José em outro momento. Okay, Joe, it's great.
Keep going. Okay, yep. So anyway, I have all the students record themselves, and I have them recording themselves, of course, in the lesson. I encourage that when they practice as well. I encourage that when they do a mock audition, or they have to do a placement audition at the school. I encourage them to record themselves when they play in an ensemble, okay, as well. It's not easy for everybody to play in an ensemble. That's something that is very hard to teach, but you have to listen. But it goes beyond that. You have to know the score. So there's one student, I'm just going by my recent experiences with my own students. That's, pretty fresh on my memory. So we had a trombone choir rehearsal the other day, and the one student plays well. He played in a master class the week before. He played the chorale, cadence, and fugato, and did a really nice job for Ralph Sauer in the class, and I was happy with that. However, when you put him in an ensemble, he doesn't quite get it. And what I realized is that he needs to see the score. So what I need to do for every piece that we play as an ensemble, I need to be sending the score out to all these students. So, and the ones that have trouble are, when I see this person for his lesson on Friday, that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about, hey, you have to be looking at the score, finding out who moves where, and you need to respond off of that. Speaking of the score, the end of Mahler 6, okay, the famous chorale in Mahler 6. Oh, beep, boom, 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 then somebody moves. This is a classic example of that, somebody, if you never played that piece before, you need to study the score and find out, hey, where do I come in? Do I go with the conductor, or do I just listen to the people around me, right? And that's something that I think a lot of people get fooled about, is they get fooled. They follow the conductor, and they take that literally, and then they stop listening. And in the case of that Mahler 6 chorale, there's an eighth note. There's an eighth note. You can't move to your next note until you hear that eighth note. So things like this. Now I know I'm going off in a tangent here, but let's just go back to my list here. So rhythm, attack, and response. I think I've probably talked about this before. I mean, I talk about the same things all the time. So I apologize if you've heard this before. But so let's go back to the Lohengrin that I was working on. So Lohengrin has a lot of longer notes. Okay. Da, 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 dee, ba, ba, dum, right? That's a long note right there. When you will make mistakes with your rhythm on those long notes, okay, or where there are rests. So a rest is an inactive moment, okay. A long note is an inactive moment, except for the beginning of the note where it's active. Hey, it starts. So what you got to do is establish this thing called attack and response. And the way that I learned it from the great tuba player Warren Dick. And when Warren was teaching at Juilliard, all of his great students, at the time we had one of the greatest tuba studios in the world, and at jury time, when they played their juries, every one of those people played with great rhythm, and my students weren't. So I was very frustrated about that. So I asked him. I said, "Warren, man, I'm really frustrated here. I noticed all your students play exactly in rhythm, and we were right by the elevators there." He said, "Yep. What I teach them is the rhythm goes wrong in the longer notes and in the rests. Okay, when you have ongoing things, yeah, you could rush, bop, 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 bop. You could rush, but generally, those stay. Those stay in time pretty much. The severe rhythm mistakes are the ones in these other moments that I spoke about. So if I go back to the Lohengrin, da 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 dee, ba ba dum bum bum. Instead of subdividing everything, okay, which can be monotonous. I don't know how you translate monotonous, but it can be absolutely monotonous, and it can get boring actually if you subdivide everything, and you get kind of mentally exhausted if you're doing that, and you can get confused. So this is a more fun way to do it. You just throw those responses in at those moments. Da, 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 dee, ba, ba, dum, bum, bum, ba, da, dum, boom, boom. Da, 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 dee, ba, ba, dum, bum, right? Like that.
You got that from the Addams Family, didn't you?
Ah, it could have been, yeah. Da, 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 up, up, up. Yes. Well, that's a good example of that.
Yeah.
Da, 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 up, 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 up. Up, 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 right? So that's a good example of that. Anyway, so that's what I teach my students, to look at rhythm that way. All right, now I'll just keep going. Tuning, okay? To me,
Joe, actually,
yes.
if you don't mind,
Yes,
I would like to interject two questions, knowing the community and knowing the students, and based on what you just explained. You mentioned that at one point, you know, you were talking with your former colleague Warren Deck about his studio. Now, your studio has a fame today that is just unsurpassed by any other studio in the world. Not to mention the work that you've done at the New World Symphony, where you've coached also, I see, probably almost hundreds now of players. Um, what, what do you think helped you change the percentage, not only for your students there at the school to rise to the occasion for their placement auditions, but what would you say attributed to this sort of very high successful rate, of your students and people who you've guided? What is it that you changed? Did it start from this discussion with Warren? Did like, is there something that you can attribute specifically that said, hey, this is it, and then you applied it, and then bam?
Well, yeah, I think it's a hard question, but it's a combination of a lot of different things. So, number one at Juilliard, and it's improved over the years, is the quality of student that auditions is high, okay, very high. So, and it's very competitive. This last set of auditions, which we had a couple weeks ago, same thing. It's going to come down to about one or maybe two or three students that are very, very talented. I'll be honest with you. I like to teach the undergrads. I'm more excited to teach them because you spend more time with them. You get to spend 4 years with an undergrad. And many times my fourth year undergrad will play better than an incoming master's student, okay? Or one that's auditioning. So, the level just keeps going up. But once I get the student and they're in the studio, I do talk to all the students once or twice a year about fundamental practice, and I always recommend the same books: Arbon, Schlossberg, and a few other books as well. So, and I tell them that, hey, you must practice these exercises very carefully and very slowly after your warm up. And once you warm up, you need to do this material first. Okay, so don't run out and start practicing a solo or excerpts right away. So I get them to understand that concept. And I talked to them and said, listen, I'm not going to check on you all the time with this, but you have to know that this is important in your practice. So that's one reason. The other reason is when they come into the studio, okay, they got to play one great note. Okay, one great note. I don't care what note it is, something, but a long tone, and make a really beautiful sound, and say, okay, th- now we can start the lesson. So if they can't do that, and there's some issue, we spend time on tone. We spend time on getting the tone right before we start in the lesson. So, and I asked them to do that in their practicing in the same way. So when you practice, you're going to play an etude or something. You shouldn't just play. You need to play the first note and decide how you want to sound before you start. Because once you start and you're not happy with that sound, all hope is lost. Then you sort of just end up playing the same way the whole time. So are they still translating, right? Yeah, I see it. Okay, great. So that's something that I preach with the students. Also,
sorry, Joe. Sorry about that, Joe. I just stepped away because there was
no,
a lot of noise coming
yeah,
out.
that's okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So in addition to that, the students must play an etude every week. So the etude books I use are Koprosh, meat and potatoes. Okay, nothing exciting, but Koprosh, book 1, book 2, book 3, but progressively through. Nobody goes on to an etude unless it really is, terrific or they understand. So about their flaws. So and in Koprosh, it's very the key element here is evenness of rhythm. In Koprosh, there's many slur. You have the slur and the 2 tongue notes, the 2 staccato notes. How to do that correctly? Okay, ta ha ta 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 ha ta 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 ha ta ta. Right, that's very important. People play ta ha ta ta or something, or ta ha da da. No, we want to have really great contrast when we work out of the Koprosh book. Wonderful slur and 2 staccatos. Um, so anyway, that's hugely important. And then we work out of Blazevich. Okay, so obviously clefs are important. You got to be able to play in tenor and alto proficiently. So they need to do that every time. And the Blazevich etudes, especially the Hunsberger edition, if you still have that volume, this is some of the greatest etudes in the world. Okay, I think. And
Yeah.
if somebody can do an etude, any one of the students can do an etude proficiently, with great pitch, with great rhythm, with great dynamics, with wonderful tone quality, with great phrasing, then this is what you want to do in the lesson every week. Play an etude like you're performing. Okay, and so it's all centered around one etude, usually the lesson. Okay, once that is completed in the lesson, I'm very happy to move on to a solo or one page of a solo and study the solo exactly the same way we studied the etude. So in addition, one thing I should add, the location of the breath is hugely important. Where you breathe. So today the bass trombone player that played, he's good. He's very good. He played the Sarabande from the cello suite. That one. But he got to the end of the first section. He took a breath. Took a breath before the low C. I said, "What are you doing that for? That's crazy." And I had to explain to him about that. Okay, say you don't say a sentence. You don't start saying, "Hey, the girl was walking the dog." Okay, you don't talk that way. Okay, and so there's that. But also, it's a C. It's a C octave. C and C, Mr. and Mrs. C. They got married. Okay, and a C goes with the C. So anyway, we worked on that. I'm going off in a tangent again, but
no, this is really wonderful.
Yeah. So anyway, the what I work with from there is discipline. Okay, be disciplined about your practice. Don't practice too much. Find the right amount to practice. Take rests. Take rest when you practice. How to practice. Teach your students how to practice. A very young student, if you teach young students, I made a big error the other day when I was teaching a young student. And the error, the main problem is that I'm, 5,000 miles away. So I don't get to see this student. He's in China. He's my pre-college student. He's very good. However, you know, he's 15. He's getting to an age where, hey, he could play a bolero now. You know, he's can try it. The problem is when I assigned it to him, I didn't explain to him, hey, do the bolero like once and rest, and maybe try it again, and that's it, right?
Oh God!
And he went hog wild with bolero, practicing it way too much. He came in the lesson. I looked on the screen. He had his lips were swollen. I said, "What happened?" He says, "Well, I think I practiced bolero too much, you know." And so you have to explain to kids, young kids especially, you know, hey, you have to practice very smartly, and you can't just sit there and abuse yourself and repetition. Repetition is good, but repetition with breaks is important, and maybe taking those breaks, listening to what you played, recorded, and giving yourself a limited amount of attempts on something like that. So anyway,
Joe,
so the thing I told, yes, go ahead.
I wanted to ask you, so based on what you're describing here, you know, you mentioned that you like to be with students in the undergrad program because you have more time with them. And, you know, as you sort of give us a construct of, you know, your, you know, basic guideline about the elements that go into your teaching, would, uh, is this do you think of a 4-year program more or less for all of the students? You know, in other words, is it a progressive sort of pre-planned sequence from year one until the end? Also, when do you allow for students to start to do solos and excerpts? And you know probably why I'm asking this, because one of our former teachers' frustrations, Glenn Dotson, was him feeling like he had to, you know, address solos and excerpts before the time of getting through this work that you just described.
Yeah, you at Juilliard, you have to do excerpts right away because they're throwing that on placement auditions. And you know, at Curtis, we didn't have that, but at Juilliard, you're required to do that twice a year for placement auditions, and it's different repertoire each time. So right off the bat, even a very young player has to be able to you know how to play the ride, maybe, which is, so you give crash courses in you know, in these excerpts to people. And one of the things that really helps my students is my, you know, Alessi Music Studios, because then they have a place to go to get all that information. And so they have all of them are required to, you know, to have that. But yeah, it's also important, you know, not to rush somebody learning something if they're not ready for it. And many times, if a student runs into a major problem where they're having a range problem or a sound production problem, you know, we do the best we can to get through those excerpts.
Okay. Joe, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I just need to make a note here. Gente, dentro do chat, antes que o Vinícius vai continuar, eu acabei de compartilhar, sabe, o site do Alessi Music Studios, tá? .com, que ele acabou de referir. So, mais uma vez, quando você veja essas informações, links, referências dentro do chat, especialmente de hoje, eu acho que vale a pena vocês copiar isso e salva e coloca em outro documento, porque quando acaba esse encontro, assim, o chat também vai embora, tá? Okay, sorry, Joe. I was sharing your website in the chat so that people can go,
sure.
You know, go there.
Thank you. Yeah. So, where were we? Yes, I was just talking about the 4-year program.
4-year program.
Yeah. I mean, listen, nobody's gonna go out and take any auditions, you know, without my blessing. unless I know they can do certain things. It's so when everything comes together, you can feel it in a student. For instance, Brian Wendell. Brian is a wonderful player. We went through a lot to get where to get in those 4 years. We went through a lot of material. We were updating our playing all the time, and then all of a sudden, I could feel it. Everything just came together in his playing. He was playing in tune. He was playing with a great sound. He was playing with great rhythm. He was playing with artistry. And that, how do you define, how do you learn artistry? Well, you can learn it. You can learn it. But some students, it's not natural for them to be an artist. And the best we can do with those students are to help them and help them get better, and we can, it's kind of limited. But this artistry thing, Brian had that artistry, and to be honest, he had it all along, and so but you could feel everything came together perfectly for him, and say, hey, time to go out and take an audition. The first one he took, he got into the semifinals, and I said, and he came back. He said, well, I didn't win the job. I said, that's okay. You go fishing. Okay, somebody was fishing for you, or you were fishing for them, and there was a little nibble there. There was something that happened, and I said, I'm not surprised that something happened. Now we just got to go, and now it's sort of the art of taking an audition. There's an art to take an audition, and I think how much to warm up, what is the proper warm up time, or have you done enough recordings of yourself leading up to that audition, and where you vet yourself over and over again. So that's what I did when I auditioned at the Philharmonic in Montreal. I knew how I sounded. I knew exactly how I sounded on every excerpt because I recorded it so many times. And then when I got to the audition, I was very confident. Then the only thing that can go wrong from there is your nerves. Can your nerves keep your nerves at bay, and do you know how to deal with the nerves so that you can go out there and just play?
So, Joe, this is a very important. Well, I thank you so much. I'm almost sure I see everyone here intently paying close attention, even that some of the cameras are off. But I can assure you that everyone has been anticipating this event and is extremely grateful. That said, one of the questions that I think all of us professors receive down here, is as far as how to prepare for auditions. And one thing that I've always shared with people who've come to me is frankly what I learned from you during my time at New World Symphony. Yourself, also John Inglicus and Doug Yo were there. But I remember, in fact, just how much you helped me, and it was a really immediate response or result. What could you share? Because I know that it's kind of hard to go from day to night on this thing, but as you are explaining about simplicity and getting to a simplistic sort of response to things, what could you share to our students here about as far as what they need to do to prepare for an audition?
Well, before you go into the audition, you have to be honest with yourself, honest about how you sound, and honest that every fundamental is working. Okay, all the fundamentals. Your sound is an interesting sound. It's open. There's no, you can go up and down the register, and it's all the same beautiful sound, and we're not going to have shaking in the tone. You also understand about how to make a nice shape to the note. Okay, a fantastic beginning, clean beginning to the note. Okay, so that the tongue and the air are happening at the same time. You have to know, the middle of the note has to be stable, and then you have to have a knowledge of how to finish a note. So that's one thing. Second thing is obviously your slide technique has to be top notch. You can't go into an audition and play, you know, Hungarian march with horrible slide technique. Okay, you can't. And so you have to be vetting yourself there. You have to be listening to your playing in slow motion, okay, and slowing it down half speed, okay, and seeing what's going on. You know, you have to make sure you hear these little problems. So you may not even be aware that you have all kinds of small problems with your slide technique. And these are undetectable sometimes to the people who are playing. But of course, like with me, I've heard this, you know, over and over again, and with my students, I can hear the tiniest slide technique problem. Okay, and anyway. So that you have to be aware of that, and you have to be doing exercises every day to make sure that you don't fall into that trap. And it can happen, you know, it can happen to top players too, you know, that you fall out of touch with your technique, your slide technique, and you get a little sloppy with that, a little lazy. So anyway, that has to happen. And knowledge of the score, knowledge of the tempo. Okay, what tempo are you going to go in there with? You're going to go there with some tempo that you heard from you know, the Russian Eastern Russian symphony, you know, or whatever. Not Russian. I don't know. I could be. It could be Estonia. I don't know. Some orchestra that may not.
Something from the laser light production, laser light disc production. You remember those recordings?
Well, I don't. But yeah. But what I'm talking about is maybe find a great recording of the Berlin Philharmonic or the Cleveland Orchestra or the you know, the Helsinki Symphony, Helsinki Philharmonic, some big orchestra that, and preferably a recording that is more up to date. You know, not from 1950s, or, you know, playing is improved and over all those years. So anyway, the tempi that I suggest on the Alessi Music Studios, these are the tempo for the excerpts that I think are in the middle. Okay, so you don't want to go in there with a real fast tempo or a real slow tempo. So tempi is very important, and that you select the right tempi. You know, dynamics. You know, you got to go in there with dynamics. You could play, have the greatest high register, have the greatest sound, the greatest rhythm, and the greatest pitch. If you don't play with any dynamics, I'm sorry. That's like watching a movie, you know, Star Wars with no John, you know, with no music of John Williams, just nothing. You know, it would be like that. So you have to come in with a dynamic plan and have good contrast with your dynamics. And anyway, and then those are the things you need to have before you go to an audition. So that's essential. And then once you decide you're going to go, then you got to get into this recording thing. Okay. And you don't wait for an audition to record yourself. You got to do that today, right? As soon as you get off this Zoom thing, everybody should go and record themselves and listen what they're doing. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do that right after this. So yeah, I got some recordings from my website coming out, and
fantastic.
So I have to do. So anyway, you do that, and you do mock auditions. You put yourself in front of people to see how you behave and how you react, and you have to be very determined, very focused. You also have to practice performing. Okay, so you practice in your lessons, and you have construction and deconstruction of a piece. Okay, so you slice it up, and you do repetitive things. Okay, in whatever piece you're doing, and then you have to have a thing in your mind. Say, okay, I've done my due diligence on this piece. I'm now going to perform it from the beginning to the end without stopping. And now you have to have the practice performing. So, you know, no matter what happens, you are not going to stop. Okay. And you put a little pressure on yourself when you do that. Okay. You could put the recording device on again. Okay. And you could even imagine that you're walking into a room with all your peers, you know. So I'd walk in a room and Glenn Dotson's there, or Mark Lawrence or whoever, and they're all listening to me. And so, you know, I've had that happen in real life a couple times. So, you know, that's a lot of pressure. So, you know, but you have to put that pressure on yourself when you practice. If you're just practicing with no pressure, I'm sorry. So yes, people tell me that studying with me, it's you know, it's a little tough. I guess I put pressure on people. I'm glad. They feel a little pressure from me, because that's what it's like. That's what it's like in the real life.
Real life,
You know, in real life, you go out there, you know, in a chorale or something on stage, and you know, whatever conductor's up there is hey, let's do this again section, and you know, you're a little bit out of tune, and or whatever. He's messing around with everything. You have to stay calm and be able to put up with that pressure. So if you know, right now it's really hard to do that because we're not in front of anybody. Okay, so you have to create that image yourself, and be able to use your imagination to, you know, hey, or put up a sign or something just before you play something, said, hey, this is the real deal, or something, you know, you only get one shot at this, or something like that. And you know, and then just put that sign up, and then you can take it down, you know, after you play. But there has to be something like that in the practice that happens.
Yeah. Well, I know I'm certainly grateful for the guidance. You know, it's funny you mentioned about how Juilliard has, you know, this sort of requirement that the students have that we did not have at Curtis, because obviously we were only one orchestra, and so we didn't have to do placement placement auditions, and you know, and I was curious to, as far as your perspective, as far as how do you see yourself giving instructions at Juilliard um, on this particular topic of preparing for auditions different than you do at the New World Symphony, out of curiosity?
No, same.
Okay.
Yeah, they're
Perfect.
these are top players. They're already vetted. To get into the New World Symphony is harder to get into a real orchestra, I think, sometimes.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's the way I would go about doing it. And you know, and the other thing is, you have to give yourself a number of tries at auditioning. When, you know, eventually auditions will come back. They're not happening right now, but I did see the principal trombone in Cleveland. They're going to go ahead with this now. And there's a couple others. There's one in Dallas that's happening.
Is that for principal?
That's for Vexel or changer, you know.
Okay, yeah.
Doubler.
Right. Okay.
So, you know, the orchestras will eventually crank this up. I hope, you know, God willing.
Yeah, but, Joe, actually, I wanted to ask you about, I mean, last year was a tumultuous year, and I mean, a lot of things happened. And the New York Philharmonic was among the first, you know, between various orchestras to make a pronouncement regarding fairness and equality. Well, what I want to ask is not necessarily about the overall institutional you know, outlook or response, but I wanted to know your thoughts as far as the use of screens, you know, auditions using the screen, you know, and how you feel of how that you know, helps or perhaps doesn't help in the audition process for the candidate and for the orchestra.
Yeah. Well, I've done it both ways as a candidate. Okay, so I would say it's maybe easier. Let's say if I went out to audition right now, okay, and I didn't have a screen, I think I would rather have a screen. You know, somebody, people know of me a little bit out there in the world, and you know, so if I went to audition, I think I'd feel better behind the screen, to be honest. I don't, you know, I think it's better for them too. I think it's better for them, so that, you know, oh, let's get him. Well, no, let's get that person who's behind the screen. I would rather have him say that about me than let's get him because he's, that
Joe
person.
Leslie.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. So do you understand what I'm saying, right?
I understand. Yeah.
So I think that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing. I think it should stay, and I think it's something that is good for everybody.
I agree.
Period.
Actually,
Period.
yes, I agree. As so the screen until um the end, like they do at the Met, or do you think
the way we do it, I don't know what they do at the Met, but here at the Philharmonic, they have the screen up. So let's say I'm on the committee, right? It's a associate first trombone audition. So I'm going to be listening in the first rounds out behind the screen. Okay. And then I get to go behind the screen at the end with the candidate to either play duets or trios or quartets or something with the section. And then the rest of the committee stays out in the hall behind the screen. Okay. So that can happen to get to the super final. Okay. And the super final, of course, is without a screen. That's going to be the pianist there. There's going to be the music director. However, when I auditioned for Montreal, at that time, we didn't have any section round. There was no section round. And I think I played with piano. Yeah, I played, did I play Casterade? I can't remember what I played, but something like that. And it was all behind the screen, even the piano round. Nobody, when they hired me, they were just, they didn't know who they were hiring, so, so I was very happy. That was the first audition I walked away thinking, wow, I can really play an audition, because it was the first one that was all behind the screen. I felt like $1 million after that. It was I really did. And I felt empowered that I could go and, I could go on to the next audition and make a good impression.
Being in the position that you are, and as a member of the New York Philharmonic, do you think that this is, well, you already stated that you think that the screen should stay. Do you think that also having sectional rounds is, is important, for the end, process?
Absolutely. Yeah. You got to see how people, like I said, just like this one student of mine, he played a really great solo and then he put him in an ensemble and he just doesn't know what to do. Or he knows something, but his ensemble skills are not that good. So, yeah, so you really got to test him on that, I think, in the audition.
Right. Right.
And the trumpets and the horns, and over the years, they've done a duet round. So this, the principal will go up there and play duets with a candidate behind the screen, and see, and the committee has both parts in the hall, so they can watch both parts, and then they switch. So one plays first, and then they switch, and then that can tell quite a bit if people are adjusting, or are they making the other person sound good or not.
Yeah, yeah, that's fantastic. And also I was curious to know, how are you feeling about, as far as the ensembles in New York these days? I mean, well, speaking of the New York Phil and the Met, when do you anticipate that these two organizations are going to be, back on stage regularly?
Well, it's hard to say, but I would say, this month we're going to get our whole schedule for next year. We're going to be moving. We don't have a hall right now, so our hall is being completely demolished. I mean, not completely, but the inside is all demolished. So it's
right.
I would show you a picture. I have an unauthorized picture of it. I can't show it to you because I could get in trouble if it ends up on the internet. But there is a person who works as an engineer inside that hall, and he plays tuba and bass trombone. So he knows Anthony Barfield and myself, and
Yeah.
And, you know, so he sent a little picture, but I can tell you it's all, it looks like a bomb went off in there.
It's like gutted.
Pretty much.
Gutted.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And then they moved the stage forward, and they're actually very smart doing it right now.
Right.
Because hey, you know, there's not going to be any audience for
Yeah.
some time. Anyway, now we're going to move into Alice Tully Hall at Lincoln Center, which is part of Juilliard.
Right.
And so that's where we're going to do our concerts. And I'm sure that we'll have small audiences in September. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, you know, this is why that Chick Corea piece was delayed. I'm delaying it in New York until we're back in our own hall. I want to play it for an audience, you know.
Right.
And so yeah,
Will you be performing it there first, or are you going to be performing
with
it
you
in
guys?
Brazil?
The world premiere is in Brazil.
So
yeah,
that's fantastic.
Yeah. I don't now. Do you have audiences there?
Until today we did.
Before this, what? How much?
Yeah, we were having audiences. You know,
full or not full?
No, not full, but you know, quite a bit. I mean, I would say probably around 500.
Okay.
You know, we were getting there at least.
Right.
So,
yeah.
So, but gente, a gente está assim continuando. O Vinícius está fazendo belo trabalho aqui, sabe, nas traduções. Se alguém tiver uma pergunta, sabe, por favor, sabe, fica à vontade. Eu não sei se realmente nossos convidados do Coletivo Brasileiro de Trombone têm alguma pergunta. Wagner, sabe, você está bem-vindo de realmente botar uma pergunta para esclarecer algo, sabe, nessa conversa, sabe, que vocês fizeram. So I'm just checking in on everyone, Joe, to just make sure that everyone's fine and that it seems that things are going great. People are understanding. The coordinator who's actually doing the translation is doing a fantastic job. So,
okay, great.
Yeah, no, it's really incredible. And I invited some of our, you know, senior guests if they have also any question or want to, you know, interact, because they had a big discussion about certain technical things. And you know, okay, hold on, we have one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Ok, Boa, pode perguntar.
Então, vou fazer em português, você pode traduzir, por favor. Sobre a técnica de vara que ele disse. Eu queria saber como ele pensa as mudanças, se ele pensa num braço rápido, porque a gente teve essa discussão com o Jeffrey uma semana passada também, ele tem algumas diferenças. Eu queria saber nas mudanças, ainda mais quando ele tocando legato, se ele pensa que o braço tem que ser o mais rápido possível e sair o mais tarde possível, ou como é que ele pensa numa boa técnica de vara, como deveria ser.
Você esteve aqui desde o início, o Boa?
Sim.
Okay, tá bom. Joe, so this is a question going back about your concept as far as slide technique. You know, in the case of legato, can you clarify? Are you meaning that the slide has to be, you know, faster, later? What is it that you are trying to explain as far as what makes good slide technique?
I don't like to think faster because that might increase tension, and then we get into this stuff where people they think fast as that, and it's not. It's just later is what I recommend. So you need to practice very slowly. Go ahead.
Later, but not necessarily slow.
Well,
late in terms of timing.
Yeah.
Right?
Later in terms of timing. So when we take something like this, ding dong bom bom bim bom 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 dee dee dee. There's a couple things that can happen right here at this moment, so that can go wrong. So we can anticipate, and then we go like that, okay, or we can make a crescendo. So sometimes we like to make a crescendo, and then this is why a little small crescendo can happen just before we change. Like that. And then we get into this wah wah legato type of thing that we want to avoid. So we can use the slide. Sorry, we can use glissandi to get rid of that problem. Intentional. To get the feeling of you know what constant air is. Okay, but once you get that feeling of constant air, then you have to subdivide. So 1, 2, 3, 4, change, or 1, 2, change. Okay, this is why when you work on your legato, you never work on your legato without thinking rhythm. Okay, because you got to find the exact moment to move where everything is coordinated. Okay, so when Glenn Dotson warmed up, behind, he would say to everybody, I don't believe in warm up. Warm up is when the horn is warm. Right?
Yeah,
he would say that.
Yeah.
He said that.
That's right.
But you'd go backstage at the Philharmonic, I was at the Philadelphia Orchestra, you'd hear him do that exercise. That's what he would do. He would just go back and forth between two notes and do these simple little exercises, very simple. And I think that was just for him to get his brain warmed up, so you knew when to do you knew exactly when to move the slide and coordinate with your tongue and make a fantastic legato with no glissando.
Yeah, that was like the first semester at Curtis with him.
Yeah. I mean, it was amazing what he was obsessed with that.
Yeah.
And so I am too when I teach. But yeah, so the legato tongue, we spoke about that. If you're moving the tongue at the wrong time and the slide at the wrong time, then we got all kinds of problems. So we have to do exactly at the right moment. And many times, so let me demonstrate how it goes wrong. So that's the classic mini crescendo, little mini crescendo. We're getting nervous. The player gets nervous. Oh, I got to move my slide here, and you get nervous with your air, and then your airstream increases just before you move, and then there's that little surge of air. Okay, so we have to stay very calm and keep the airstream just constant, absolutely constant, and use the glissando to help us get that feel. But yeah, we don't want to move the slide too soon, and also the tongue has to be that undefined consonant that we need to study.
Yeah, that is fantastic. So great.
Yeah. Now, if you guys run out of questions, it's fine. So don't worry. Don't feel like you have to ask me questions. And it could be that you're getting tired, and that's fine.
So great. Okay. So I was just checking in here. So I have frankly a couple of questions that I thought it would be interesting for them to hear things. I wanted to ask you about what was your experience like. Glenn formed Poussin de Coupley, and unfortunately that was his first and last participation. But I was curious because you mentioned about walking into the room, playing for Glenn and playing for Mark Lawrence, and I wanted to ask you if you could just sort of talk about a little bit about what that experience was like for you in 2006, the very first Poussin de Coupley concert, and there was just this mega lineup of superstars, on trombone, and with Glenn there playing, if you could just explain to people what that was like, his age at that time, and how basically what your impressions were.
Well, yeah, Glenn loved trombone ensemble. Any kind of trombone ensemble he loved. And I never played in a large trombone ensemble until I came. Well, that's not true. I played in some really big choirs, but I think he liked the trombone octet especially, and or 8 to 10 players. When it gets too big, it's you're not your job is not really you're just along with the ride, so to speak. But when the group is the right size, 8 to 10, and you put on part 4 or part 1 or whatever, you have your own part, and that's exciting to do that. So I think he really loved that, and of course he loved conducting these things. But I think his exuberance for those types of events, whether the Pazan de Cupla or just get-togethers at his house of wonderful students and players, or even players that weren't that great. He just loved to bring people together in the trombone ensemble, and he loved that sound, the sound of a trombone ensemble. And so I've continued that through him with the Juilliard Trombone Choir, and I would have loved if he could have heard the latest CD that we just put out of the holiday trombone classics.
He would have loved that.
Yeah, and anyway, that sound is really, and his exuberance for that is just carried has rubbed off on me, and just it's exciting. It's like conducting an orchestra, but they're all trombone players, and for I'm not a great conductor at all, or not even a good conductor, but I learn about conducting by doing something with the trombone choir. And when you get to conduct Beethoven's Seventh or something from Egmont or whatever, this is exciting, to take on a project like that. And so anyway, yeah. But when Glenn played lead trombone in these ensembles, it was you had to keep up with him. It was a very, very exciting way to play. And just speaking very briefly about him, in addition to what I'm saying, when you went to hear him in the orchestra, it was very exciting. It was like Babe Ruth, pointing. Babe, the famous baseball player, he would point to right field and say, in the baseball game, and say, "I'm going to hit a home run now in right field." That's very, very famous story about Babe Ruth, and that's what Glenn was like too. You'd go and you knew he was going to hit a home run that night when he played the Brahms second or whatever. That was especially exciting to hear him do that. Now, sometimes he'd swing for the fences, and he'd go swing in a big way, and he'd miss in a big way. But it was very, very exciting to even hear that when he missed a note, because everybody heard it, and so I kind of I kind of have some of that in me as well, for sure. And I feel like if you're going to play these things, you might as well go out and really go for it, as long as the conductor's happy with it, of course. But yeah.
That is fantastic. So I have a question here from one of Wagner.
Right, I might have to leave in about 5 or 10 minutes.
So. Okay, no problem. I have a question here from Wagner's former student. This is Silas Falcone, if I'm not mistaken. So, Silas, pode liberar o seu microfone?
Opa, tudo bem?
Hello.
Hello.
Silas.
Yes, Silas Falcão. Darwin, se puder traduzir para mim, eu fico mais à vontade. Sim. Eu só gostaria de perguntar o que o professor acha que mudou num conceito de naipe, desde quando ele entrou na New York Philharmonic até hoje. Qual é a maior diferença que ele sente, que ele fala, agora os naipes de trombones de orquestra têm caminhado para tal caminho ou para outro caminho, não sei. Você entende a pergunta, Derek?
Sim, eu estou entendendo.
Você entendeu?
Sim. Ou seja, é uma pergunta não somente referente à orquestra dele, mas assim,
Sim,
naipe
geral.
no geral.
Sim.
Entendi. Okay.
Obrigado,
De
Derek.
nada. So, Joe, Silas is the principal trombone of the Philharmonic of Goiás. This is an orchestra that is near the region where this festival is taking place. And his question is related to what do you think has changed about section playing, not just in your orchestra, but in general? You know, what would you say is the biggest difference in, I would say, even just expectation or tendencies? Do you think that things are getting better, getting worse? You mentioned before, you know, for students to not listen to only recordings from 50 years ago, but yet we know that there are some great examples from that time as well. But so, what is your perspective on this?
Are you talking about within the trombone section or the
Yes,
brass
trombone
section?
section. Trombone section. Only trombones.
Low brass, or yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's hard to say. I would say that we're in a period of time here where we're trying to be inviting, all inclusive. We're changing our society is changing for the better, I think, because we're trying to get more people involved of different races and color and you know sex, you know, whatever, male, female, all the whole gamut, and we, you know, we're trying to be more inclusive in our society. And I think when we play in an orchestra, okay, I think that's happening as well. I think to some extent, so that the you know the trombones can't be often by themselves, and you know, maybe as in the past with certain sections or certain orchestras, but now I think now it's something that we have to become part of the orchestra, and we have to be, I think, smarter, and we are becoming smarter as low brass players, because we realize, you know, when I was a young kid, I would get an orchestra part, you know, looking at Tchaikovsky, you know, symphony or something, and the whole thing would say fortissimo, or a lot, you know, a lot of the things would just say fortissimo, and even the long notes. It, you know, it took a long time for me to realize that, hey, in this section it says fortissimo, but hey, this is not the melody. And so I think nowadays the sections and low brass players are becoming more aware of this and smarter as far as when we're going to show our a little bit of muscle here and there, and when we do it in a when we do it, we need to do it in a way where we work as a team, okay, and we have to have, you know, absolutely great intonation. So this is what I work on at Juilliard all the time. We are doing live lessons and live coachings. We just the other day we did some big piece. I can't remember what it was, but maybe it was the ride, and so I said, you know, and the students haven't been getting this kind of classes for that long, so we're just starting up. But I tell everybody, hey, listen, you should be able to hear and listen to the person on your left side and your right side, and the person on the right should listen to the person on the left, and so on. And it needs to be a teamwork, a team kind of sound. So so I think that's what's always getting better in low brass sections, and you know, when I started at the Philharmonic a long time ago, I think somebody once told me, you know, try to lead by example, not by talking. And I think that's important, that, you know, try to lead by example, and you know, everybody needs to be listening and adjusting, and not be so into your own part, but try to always listen. And how do you make your colleagues sound better next to you when you play? I think this is important. Okay, so if everybody's thinking that, if everybody's thinking, hey, how do I make my colleagues sound better? that would be an interesting orchestra to play in. It doesn't happen all the time, but to me, that's what you want to do, and I think orchestras, I think, I just think that orchestras are becoming more homogeneous sounding, and that's good and bad. I heard something interesting the other day on YouTube. It was 4 or 5 different orchestras playing the very end of Brahms' first symphony. So that whole lead up to the end, beep, bom, bom, beep, and then it goes on, bum, beedum, beedum, bodim, bodim, bum, bum, da da ding, dum, ding, da dum, da da dee dum, da da dee dum, da dum, beep, bum, and that whole ending. I'm not singing the right notes, but my right rhythms. And the most interesting one to me was von Karajan conducting the Berlin Philharmonic way back, and he was conducting, having a great time, and the brass, were playing full out, really full out, and taking no prisoners, but it was so exciting to listen to. And I think a lot of the conductors, for some reason, they like to take all the fuel out of it and all the excitement out of it. Make it homogeneous. Make it homogeneous. Yes, but there's a little bit of there's something that's not particularly exciting about it either.
This question was a similar question was asked of your colleague Jay Friedman last week, and he gave a very similar response, saying that he felt that the generations before was a little bit more exciting than it is now, but the same thing, that it's more homogeneous and everything. So it's hard to find a happy medium. Just quickly, outside of your own orchestra, what is the best orchestra that you enjoy listening to today and from the past? Well, if you had to name 2 orchestras off the bat,
well,
your favorite orchestra to listen to today?
I hate to admit this, but I don't listen to orchestras on my off time. Okay. However, and I've had a long time off. That being said, I turn on the classical radio station in my car, and I like to hear an orchestra. I miss it. I miss the sound of an orchestra. And whenever I do, I always try to, of course, guess what the piece is or what the composer is, if it's a piece I don't know. And I always try to guess if it's a European or American orchestra or whatever, orchestra from international orchestra, China or whatever. But I try to figure out, who's playing, and maybe even identifying the player, the first trombone player, and see, that sounds kind of familiar. And sometimes I'm right, so, but yeah, I don't really have a favorite orchestra. I don't know.
Now, what about in the past when you were younger? When you were,
I grew up with the San Francisco Symphony,
okay.
and that was my favorite orchestra.
Okay.
And Chicago, but my favorite all-time favorite thing to listen to was the Gabrielli record of Chicago, Cleveland, and sorry, Chicago, Philly. Sorry, Chicago, Cleveland, Philly. That was my favorite thing to listen to, I think, overall. Just when I heard that, and then I heard the Chicago Symphony low brass record, these were things I wore out. I wore out the record. I wore out those records, and I wore out J.J. Johnson records.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic.
Those three things. And it wasn't till later when Luciano Pavarotti, his record started coming out on London Records. That's when I started wearing that out as well. And so when I discovered his singing, I was especially drawn to that. Yeah.
If you had a favorite, do you have a favorite symphony that you like to play? Do you have a favorite symphony that you just love?
Brahms second.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one.
And go ahead. You have another one.
Well, yeah, and Mahler 2 or 7 or 3. Any one of those are kind of a tie.
Okay.
But yeah, my favorite all-time classical piece is the complete Romeo and Juliet, the whole ballet, not the suite,
Okay.
but the whole ballet,
Right.
which I've played many times. Yeah.
If you had to estimate how many chamber collaborations are you involved in, whether actively or formally, outside of the orchestra? So, how many chamber collaborations have you racked up?
Well, yeah, a lot of it's trombone. Now, I know why these. I know why Jay Friedman's session lasted 3 hours, because you keep asking questions. That's why. You're gonna get probably questions all night long, I think. So that's okay. I'm just kidding. Yeah. So certainly, yeah, the trombone quartet has been a huge part of my upbringing. The first time I played trombone quartets ever, I think, was when I auditioned for Curtis the first time, and I didn't get in that time, but I stayed. I went out to play quartets with Carl Lenthy and Phil McClelland and a couple other people, Tom Elliott maybe, but I couldn't believe how much fun that was. I was very, I'm almost stunned that trombone players were playing for such long periods of time. In a trombone quartet, you don't play and rest. You're playing the whole time.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to keep up with the next person. So I was always excited about that. And then at Curtis, we did some of that more. And then when the Four of a Kind thing came around, we wanted to make a fantastic group of players, and it certainly was. It was. So anytime I think about performing in that type of group, I've played in brass quintets, but brass quintets is fun, really lots of fun. And I think it's great. But to me, the trombone quartet is where I really get my kicks. And it's like a string quartet.
Yeah.
A great string quartet. And then, working with the other groups, the Slide Monsters has been a lot of fun.
Oh, that's fantastic. I heard that.
I think that's going to continue.
Yeah.
So anyway.
That is absolutely fantastic. By the way, you mentioned some dear friends of ours in common. Today is Karen Banos's birthday. This is Phil McClelland's wife, Karen. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah. I remember. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and Tom Elliott. Wow, that's I haven't a long time that I haven't heard that. So, I used to play a lot of gigs with him. He's a great player. Great player. So. Nice guy. Well, listen, guys, let me just sort of check the chat here because I had it closed. Okay. So, Joe, can't thank you enough. You're a wonderful sport as always, and just a, great, shining light, inspiring, generations of players, all around the world. And, I want to just, thank you for, being here, for your friendship, for being a great mentor to me as well. And yeah, that's just great. I would like to ask, eu posso pedir para todo mundo abrir as câmeras e vamos dar uma aplauso para o nosso querido convidado para hoje. Pode até abrir os microfones, tá, gente?
Thank you. Really very excited. Very excited to come to Brazil and play this wonderful piece. The orchestrator, I know Chick Corea just passed away, and I'm very sorry about that and getting to work with him. It's kind of shocking that he's not around anymore, but he was only 79. But the orchestrator is finishing the orchestration as we speak. It should be at the publisher pretty soon. And so the music is there, and he did finish the piece, which is very nice. And so I can't believe that I get the honor to play this and to play down there. So
no, I think it's wonderful, and I'm hoping that maybe when you come down, we will have an occasion, perhaps Wagner Bois, to organize something with the Brazilian Trombone Collective, with you. I think that would be a great organization to, to collaborate with your visit here.
I hope I can. Thank you, and I hope I can make the most of my time and visit with everybody. And I've known Wagner, God, for a long time. My God. Rita is doing well. Tell her I said hello, please.
Okay, we are great. Everybody's at home now, but
okay, well, give her my regards. And
I will.
yeah. But it's great to see Jose Milton and everybody here, and just I respect all the Brazilian players, and it's going to be a lot of fun to come down there and do this piece. It's certainly it's challenging, going to be a challenging piece, but I'm very excited to do this, and it's going to be probably the highlight of my life to play this concerto.
Wow.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Are there trombones in the orchestra to accompany you?
Yes, there is.
Oh.
Sorry. There's not a lot of brass writing. There are some things in there, but it sounds like a kind of a light orchestration.
Is it a full low brass section?
This I don't know.
Okay.
I'll get the score soon. I'll let you know.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I know that I'm playing for sure.
Well, listen, all the best, and have a great evening and rest of the day there, and
Great. Thank you so much, Joe, again. And
bye, Joe.
Yes.
Okay.
So
see you
take
later.
care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
See you soon.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Vinícius, você está aqui comigo ainda?
Estamos aqui.
Ok, perfeito. So, faltam uns 10 minutos aqui. Bom, bem-vindo aos demais, sabe, que esteve aqui. Temos essa sessão até 5 horas. Eu ia, sabe, conversar com os alunos que estão aqui. Vocês estão bem-vindos de ficar, ou se vocês precisam ir embora, não tem problema. Tchau, Wagner.
Tchau. Sei.
E obrigado, Boa, e Silas e os outros convidados que estiveram aqui conosco hoje. O Diego está ali, do Filarmônico de Minas Gerais. Será? Ou ele está dormindo? Bom. Gente, então, mais um dia de aprendizagem. Muito obrigado pela, assim, a sua atenção e compreensão, sabe, por qualquer, sabe, falhas. Eu acho o nosso querido o Vinícius merece um grande aplauso pelo grande trabalho que ele fez de tradução, sabe, fantástico, sabe.
Obrigado. Eu fiz o meu melhor, não é muito fácil traduzir simultâneo.
Eu pensei que teve um momento que eu estava, sabe, conversando com ele, vendo a tradução, e falei, será que é um AI que está trabalhando aí, sabe? Parece que é um computador, sabe? Foi absolutamente incrível.
Obrigado.
Eu até capturei, sabe? Eu peguei uma boa parte, sabe? Eu copiei, eu estou, sabe, deixando em um arquivo para mim online. Eu recomendaria para vocês também fazer a mesma coisa. Muitos assuntos assim abordados. Eu espero que realmente ele conseguiu tirar, sabe, dúvidas ou pelo menos apresentar novas ideias, sabe, para vocês. Eu tentei realmente assim compartilhar alguns assuntos para ele elaborar, sabe, como não estava vendo muitas perguntas, mas eu queria só ressaltar que amanhã vai ser, assim, tecnicamente, o último dia de aulas, mas temos uma programação para sábado. Eu queria só deixar vocês cientes disso. Vinícius, caso você puder compartilhar novamente esse link para sábado da manhã, que vai ter a partir de 9 horas da manhã. Eu vou fazer uma, sabe, aula com vocês das 9 até 10 horas. 10 horas nós vamos receber o Dion Tucker. Ele é um trombonista, sabe, afro-americano. ele toca com Wynton Marsalis. Ele, sabe, eu queria realmente trazer alguém, sabe, com credibilidade e experiência, sabe, da área, sabe, popular e jazzista. Ele é colega do Wycliffe, e ele toca realmente nesse conjunto que o Wycliffe e o Ken Tompkins montou, chama The Black Excellence Trombone Choir. Mas ele é assim, além de ser um belo trombonista, sabe, no gênero, mas também ele é um grande educador. Na verdade, ele tem um grande talento como educador e como compositor também. So, ele vai estar conosco a partir de 10 horas da manhã. Então, quem que realmente gosta e toca, sabe, música popular, jazz, eu acho um grande momento. Ele realmente tocava com a grande banda do Wynton Marsalis, que desceu para o Brasil e, sabe, fez um grande torneio, sabe, pela América Latina, se eu não me engano. So, 10 horas no sábado. O Vinícius já conseguiu um link para gente. So, só para não confundir com os demais, sabe, links que a gente vai ter, temos um link específico para esse sábado, tá? Aí, assim, amanhã nós vamos ter o Randy Kapoor, que foi um outro, sabe, professor meu. Randy Kapoor é trombonista baixo da Orquestra Sinfônica de Baltimore. E depois nós vamos ter a Brittany Lash. Brittany Lash é a primeiro trombone da Orquestra de Ópera do estado de Michigan. E depois disso, nós vamos ter um grande surpresa para vocês. Temos contato desde aquele concurso do Coletivo Brasileiro de Trombone. Temos a banca inteira, assim, a banca inteira dos jurados desse evento que ocorreu em setembro do ano passado. Vai estar com o Gibi, Felipe Pereira, o Renato Lisboa de novo, Hugo, eu, o David Santos e François da Orquestra de Campinas, Ricardinho, se eu não tinha falado isso. Amanhã, sabe, para acabar, sabe, da minha parte, pelo menos, a gente vai ter essa grande coleção. Aí, se você tiver amigos, sabe, que tocam trombone baixo, além de vocês que estão aqui, será uma grande oportunidade. A gente vai ter uma festa de trombone baixo amanhã, depois desse grande dia de ter um dos maiores, se não o maior referência de trombone tenor do mundo, o Joe Alessi. E ainda nós vamos finalizar no sábado com uma grande referência, sabe, pelo menos uma pessoa que está trabalhando dentro de um das bandas de jazz mais reconhecidas, sabe, hoje em dia, o Dion Tucker. Bom, é isso para hoje. Nossa, pela primeira vez eu vou encerrar, sabe, no horário certo. Temos, assim, eu tenho uns 3 minutos aqui. Se alguém tem alguma dúvida ou alguma pergunta ou comentário, reclamação. Bom, reclamação, eu já mostrei a página, tem a página Professor Darren Odialo é pouco, aí você pode botar todas as caches, sabe, reclamações, críticas. Bom, é isso. José, você tem algo para complementar? Bom, eu estou te devendo o tempo. Se você quiser, pode até entrar e invadir minha aula à vontade agora. Depois daquilo que nós fizemos com você outro dia, fica à vontade.
Tudo certo. Nós todos somos professores do curso. Espero que todos tenham captado as informações que o Joe passou para vocês. Eu acho que é muito importante isso que está acontecendo. Eu só quero enfatizar 2 pequenas coisas que são bem interessantes, né? Copiem imediatamente aqui esse esquema do chat, né? Parabéns, Vinícius, pela tradução, ficou muito legal. Você deu ideias, inclusive, pra gente, né? Porque a gente sempre tem um problema com tradução simultânea, né? Então isso é uma coisa que a gente vai copiar. E a segunda coisa é que, assim, gente, façam um esforço, né? A gente está vivendo um momento bem complicado no Brasil, mas acredito eu que em agosto a gente já vai estar mais tranquilo. Espero. Então a gente vai poder ir a São Paulo e assistir o Joe. É um momento histórico para o trombone mundial, não sei se vocês perceberam, porque o Derry ontem falou sobre o Felix Mendelssohn, que quase escreveu um concerto para trombone, né? O Karl Roth quase escreveu um concerto para grupo de trombones.
Metais graves.
Metais graves. Metais graves, porque tem tuba, é verdade, esqueci disso.
Isso mesmo, sim.
E outros exemplos, eu me lembro mais ou menos alguns outros nomes, grandes nomes da composição, e o Chick Corea é considerado por muitos um desses nomes da atualidade, um dos grandes compositores. Então, eu acho que é uma coisa histórica. Além da vinda do Joe LS, a gente tem a oportunidade de ver ao vivo um acontecimento histórico para a história do trombone. Agora está confirmado que vai ser estrada de São Paulo. Olha que beleza isso aí. Isso é muito bom, né? Pra gente mesmo. Isso como brasileiro, isso é muito bom. Enfim, eu só queria falar sobre isso. E hoje tem aula 7. E você pode E hoje tem aula 7, vocês podem entrar a hora que vocês quiserem. A aula é nossa, fica tranquilo.
Bom, o senhor Paulinho, o senhor tem alguma coisa para adicionar? Ou o Thiago Portito também? O Thiago deve estar realmente, sabe, dormindo ou tomando um shake. Sabe?
Ele deve estar nesse momento fazendo aquele alongamento dele do Van Damme, que a perna
É isso mesmo, sei. E aí, Paulinho, o que você achou?
Agradecer por esse grande privilégio, né, de a gente... O senhor está me ouvindo?
Está bem baixinho.
Ah, é?
Aham.
Agradecer por esse momento, que realmente foi um momento histórico, né, para todos nós trombonistas. Eu tive o privilégio de ver o Joe Alessi aqui no teatro. Ele veio 2 vezes com a Filarmônica de Nova York. Então tivemos o privilégio. E depois, em 2016, eu fui no encontro da ITA, e lá, quando ele era o presidente da ITA, e lá eu também tive o prazer de vê-lo lá. Então é isso.
Tá bom. Fantástico. Ok. Bom, essa aí, se ninguém tem mais dúvida, eu vou me despedir e eu vou fazer exatamente o que o Joe falou. Eu vou realmente tentar, sabe, achar meu som aqui em um desses monstros atrás de mim. E aí vocês, assim, fiquem à vontade. Ou Vinícius, talvez dá um tempo, caso as pessoas querem gravar esse chat, ok? Bom, é isso, gente. Eu estou me despedindo. Muito obrigado pela presença, José, Paulinho, de sempre, e vocês todos. Mais uma vez, foi um prazer. CIVEBRA 2021, sala virtual de trombone. É isso, gente. Até às 7 horas hoje da noite. Tchau, tchau.
Vinícius?
Estou te ouvindo, Paulinho.
Você poderia fazer uma gentileza, me mandar o link de sábado? Pode ser?
Claro, mando sim, ó. Vou colocar ele agora aqui no chat.
Rapaz, eu tenho... Desculpa, Vinícius, eu tenho uma certa dificuldade. O chat é o quê, hein?
Aqui na parte de baixo do Zoom tem aqui bate-papo. Aí é a conversa que tem aqui na lateral. Eu coloquei ali. Mas, de toda forma, desculpa, não estou te ouvindo.
No compartilhar ou no participantes? Ou no mais?
Ao lado do participantes tem bate-papo.
O meu aqui está escrito mais. É esse?